panggilnya apa nih? Bu Vina, silahkan memainkan peran malam ini. Bu Vina, Bu Vina ini adalah alumni S2 Asia, beliau dari sastra Jepang. Nah, sengaja saya hadirkan di sini supaya say hi, say hi dengan speaker malam ini. Silahkan Bu Vina.
Hai, arigatou gozaimasu. Konbanwa, Asamizu Munehiko sensei.
Konbanwa.
Jangan lupa direkam ya.
Watashi wa Finafato untuk mosimas. Watashi wa Stie Asia kara sotsugyou shimashita. Kyou wa watashi wa awareness de oshiemasu. Domo arigatou gozaimasu.
どうもありがとうございます。よろしくお願いします。
とてもnervous.
Tenang aja loh Bu.
Iya.
Saya nggak bisa bahasa Jepang aja tetap tenang.
Arigatou
Hontou ni tanoshii desu.
gozaimasu.
Itu Bu Tere.
Kami ingin menyampaikan bahwa speaker malam hari ini bisa hadir bersama kita berkat bantuan dari Bu Mega yang saat ini posisinya ada di Jepang. Terima kasih Bu Mega untuk acara malam ini. Jadi lebih bervariasi ya.
Halo Bu.
Ya, next kami akan coba mengundang dari Korea juga. Di sana ada Bu Lucy ya. Nah, ini yang kami kesulitan karena alumni kami belum ada yang dari Korea gitu. Nah, ini untung Bu Vina saya cari langsung gercep datang. Bu Vina nanti malam ini harus datang bersama kami, Bapak Ibu yang hadir malam ini. Bu Vina ini adalah alumni dari S2 Asia. Ya, ingin kami sampaikan bahwa S2 Asia sudah membuktikan semua background S1 apa saja bisa kuliah S2 di Asia. Ya, beliau dari sastra Jepang, dia Ibu sekarang lecture di Awareness Education Center.
Pendidikan,
Jadi,
pendidikan bahasa Jepang, Bu Tere.
Pendidikan bahasa Jepang.
Iya.
Ya, ini sangat membantu. Cuma di S2 Asia memang tidak ada mata kuliah pilihan Jepang ya. Yang ada mata kuliah bahasa Inggris yang kami bekerja sama dengan Cambridge University. Sekalian kami mau sampaikan bahwa penerimaan mahasiswa baru di bulan September kami masih buka dan karena terkena rasio kami dibatasi nih Bapak Ibu terbatas. Biasanya kami tutup di bulan Agustus tapi akan tutup lebih cepat apabila kuota sudah memenuhi. Jadi cepat-cepatan saja karena kelas yang eksekutif kuliah di Selasa dan Kamis itu kami punya 2 program, bisnis dan pendidikan. Untuk yang regular kuliah hybrid di hari Sabtu kita punya 4 konsentrasi, pendidikan, bisnis, publik, dan pariwisata dan hotel, tetapi dengan kuota ya. Jadi minimal 10 mahasiswa, kuota ini akan berjalan. Apabila kurang dari 10 maka kami akan arahkan ke konsentrasi bisnis dan konsentrasi pendidikan gitu. Baik, 5 menit lagi kita akan mulai. Nanti acara akan dipandu oleh Bu Mega dari awal sampai akhir. Kemudian nanti di sela-sela mungkin Bu Rektor akan masuk sebentar untuk berkenalan dengan speaker pada malam hari ini, karena beliau hari ini sedang menjadi narasumber di AMA. Ya, tadi masuk tetapi acara belum dimulai. Mungkin Bu Mega bisa menceritakan sedikit kepada Mr. Asamizu ya. Mengenai program S2 Magister Manajemen di Institut Asia. Silakan Bu.
Ya, baik, selamat malam Bapak Ibu semua. Good evening, Asamizu Sensei. Maybe I will open. Okay. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Open Lecture Institut Asia Malang Magister Management Department. I am Mega. It's my pleasure to be moderator for this open guest lecture. Actually, the program for this open guest lecture will be delivered by one of professor in Japan with the topic about is formal education important in running a business. Selamat malam Bapak Ibu semuanya. Selamat datang di Open Lecture Institut Asia Malang yang diadakan khusus oleh Departemen Magister Manajemen. Perkenalkan, nama saya adalah Mega dan kebetulan saya adalah moderator dari acara ini. Topiknya adalah pentingkah pendidikan formal dalam menjalankan bisnis. Saya ada sedikit slide untuk memperkenalkan mengenai sedikit siapa saya. Jadi kebetulan moderator pada malam hari ini saya sendiri. Saat ini sedang menempuh kuliah PhD S3 di Yamaguchi University, Jepang. Dan kebetulan Asamizu Sensei merupakan sensei saya yang ada di Jepang. Dan ada sedikit peraturan mungkin ya. Jadi mungkin ini adalah hal yang normal yang harus diperhatikan oleh Bapak Ibu sekalian terkait manner dari guest lecture. Yang pertama harus Bapak Ibu saya mohon untuk bisa mengatur supaya mic-nya bisa selalu mati pada saat speaker itu menjelaskan. Kemudian yang kedua, karena supaya kita bisa saling bertatap muka gitu ya, walaupun hanya melalui screen, sehingga saya bisa harapkan Bapak Ibu yang bisa dan ada waktu untuk kemudian bisa on screen, silahkan dinyalakan videonya. Dan yang ketiga, ada juga sedikit manner bahwa ketika di depan on kamera, sebaiknya untuk bisa limitation dari activities-nya seperti berbicara dengan orang lain, minum, makan, atau meninggalkan meja. Kalaupun memang Bapak Ibu harus melakukan hal tersebut, silakan matikan dulu videonya, kemudian dinyalakan kembali. Itu adalah sedikit manner yang biasanya dilakukan oleh student di Jepang ketika kita sedang berkuliah dengan sensei dari Jepang. Oke, tanpa berlama-lama, saya akan sedikit cerita sebenarnya Asamizu Sensei ini background-nya, education-nya, kemudian work experience-nya seperti apa. Jadi beliau mengambil program sarjana, bachelor degree, itu di Akita University di Jepang. Dan sebenarnya beliau ini background-nya adalah education, social science, dan history. Kemudian beliau ini meneruskan master S2 S3-nya di Tokyo di Jepang. Nama university-nya adalah Oberlin University. Majority-nya berubah menjadi geografi, international relation, dan tourism. Tahun 1994 sampai 2001. Nah, kebetulan major saya di Jepang ini juga berkaitan dengan tourism management, karena memang background saya adalah ekonomi manajemen, dan saya juga mengajar di Institut Asia di jurusan manajemen. Selain itu, Asamizu Sensei juga pernah menjadi exchange student dari Akita University ke Australia, yaitu di Griffith University di Queensland. Tapi memang programnya non-degree karena merupakan exchange students. Working experience-nya, beliau saat ini sudah menjadi profesor di Yamaguchi University mulai dari tahun 2018 sampai saat ini. Sebelumnya khususnya mengajar di fakultas saya. Jadi kita biasanya menyebutnya GSEAS atau GSEAS, Graduate School of East Asian Study, fakultasnya ekonomi, khusus untuk International Student Center. Kemudian beliau juga sebelumnya menjadi associate professor di Yamaguchi University, dan sebelumnya lagi menjadi assistant professor itu di salah satu universitas yang pernah melahirkan gubernur Jawa Timur Indonesia. Jadi beliau salah satu wakil gubernur kita itu juga alumni dari Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University di Beppu, Jepang. Jadi beliau juga pernah mengajar di universitas tersebut. Juga beliau ini juga pernah menjadi beberapa dosen di beberapa university, kebanyakan ada di Jepang, mulai dari Hokai Gakuen University, kemudian juga menjadi dosen luar biasa kalau istilahnya di Indonesia, mengajar di Fukuoka Prefecture University, kemudian juga pernah mengajar di Kurume University di Fukuoka. Beliau juga sudah selalu aktif ya untuk melakukan publikasi dan juga mengikuti international conference. Ini adalah beberapa publikasi dalam bahasa Inggris yang sudah beliau lakukan. Memang khususnya beliau ini spesifikasinya adalah di tourism, kemudian global mobility, human mobility in Asia Pacific, kemudian berbicara mengenai world travel, Japan tourism, dan berbicara mengenai multicultural tourism. Oke, ini juga ada beberapa international conference yang sudah beliau pernah ikuti. Beliau pernah berbicara mengenai rural tourism di Jepang, kemudian mengenai entrepreneurship development, kemudian mengenai comparative study between Australia dan Jepang, dan juga beberapa international conference lainnya yang pernah diikuti oleh beliau. Spesialitas beliau, jadi kalau misalnya Bapak Ibu ingin melanjutkan S3 di Yamaguchi University dan memiliki ketertarikan untuk mempelajari mengenai Japanese Study for International Students, Multicultural Policy, International Tourism, Human Geography dan Sosiologi, bisa menghubungi beliau dan juga meminta beliau untuk menjadi sensei atau supervisor dari Bapak Ibu sekalian. Gitu. Oke, berikut adalah perkenalan singkat mengenai kurikulum vitae dari Asamizu Sensei. Oke, terima kasih Bapak Ibu semuanya yang sudah hadir di acara open lecture hari ini. Mungkin sudah terkumpul 73 orang. Ya, saya akan lebih banyak.
Langsung saja, Ibu.
Ya, saya akan lebih banyak nanti akan bertemu lagi di sesi question and answer. So right now, please welcome our guest lecturer, Asamizu Munehiko Sensei. Your time is yours, Sensei.
Apa kabar? Thank you for your introduction about me. My name is Asamizu. I'm a professor of tourism policy in Yamaguchi University. And it is very honored to attend this very attractive webinar. And thank you to invite me. And from now on, I'd like to talk about the relations between formal education and working environment. And I wish I could talk about the cases in Indonesia, but unfortunately, I'm still learning. So today, I'd like to focus about Japan's cases. And I'd like to share my PowerPoint slides. So could you wait a second? Okay, from now, I'd like to talk about is formal education important in learning a business. But maybe the majority of audiences are not so familiar with Japan's educational system. So as introduction, I'd like to talk about Japan's education system, formal education system in general first. Okay, please take a look at this slide. It must be tough to understand, right? And this figure was originally created by the Ministry of Education, Japan. And I guess the bottom part, pink part, is easy to understand. That's a primary education, and elementary school is primary education in Japan. So that part is easy to understand. Blue part, secondary education. Maybe okay, maybe okay. The half of the secondary education is lower secondary school, or which is also called junior high school. So that part is okay, but in addition, another part of secondary education is upper secondary school, or just called high school in Japan. So the upper part is a little bit complicated, but it's still okay. But please take a look at the higher education part. It's a little bit complicated. Maybe university is easy to understand, but in addition to universities, it also has junior colleges, vocational colleges, professional and vocational universities, etc. So I'm afraid higher education in Japan is a little bit complicated. So to make the story simplified, please also take a look at the following slide. I hope it must be easy to understand, right? And well, first of all, elementary school pupils commute to elementary school, and that is primary education, and they need 6 years. And another step is lower secondary school, or it is also called junior high school, and that's 3 years education. And after that, upper secondary school, or just called high school, is existed in Japan, and usually they spend 3 years. And after that, university and or higher education is available. And in the case of economics bachelor course, we need 4 years to graduate. But in the case of medical students, they need 6 years to graduate. So again, there are quite a lot of different types of higher education institutions in Japan, but generally speaking, the majority of Japanese people going to university. So that is a simplified way to understand, Japan's formal education system. Okay, and this figure shows the number of schools in Japan. And maybe it is easy to understand if you take a look at the top one, pink one. That is the number of elementary schools. As you can see, the number of elementary schools are getting smaller and smaller in Japan. And like elementary schools, other type of schools are getting smaller and smaller recently. Except one thing, university. The number of university is still getting larger and larger in Japan. And the next figure is similar one. And this figure shows the number of students. And like the previous one, the top one is elementary pupils, and the number of elementary pupils are getting smaller and smaller. And like elementary school, other students' numbers are getting smaller and smaller, except one thing, university. The number of university students in Japan is still getting larger. Okay. And please take a look at the following slide. The reason why the number of schools and number of students getting smaller and smaller is depopulation, especially the depopulation of younger generation in Japan. Japan is Asian country, so younger people in Japan is getting smaller and smaller, but elderly becoming larger and larger in Japan. But again, the number of universities in Japan is still increasing. Do you know why? And there are three hypotheses in here. Hypothesis number one is Japanese student is getting larger. No, no. As I mentioned before, younger Japanese people are getting smaller and smaller. So, hypothesis number one is negative. And how about hypothesis number two? Elderly Japanese students are getting larger. It could be. And if you have a chance to come to Yamaguchi University, maybe you can see a lot of students who looks like professors. And sometimes you can also see students with elder as professors. So it could be. It could be in Yamaguchi, but I'm not sure in Tokyo. So hypothesis number three is the number of international students. Yes, the number of international students getting larger and larger in Japan. And learning environment in Japan for international students is changing. Maybe 20 years ago, if you want to study in Japan, maybe you need to learn Japanese language first. But nowadays, English-based program, which is also called English Medium Instruction Course, EMI course, is increasing in Japan. So Yamaguchi University, our university also has English-based programs too. And for example, a graduate school of East Asian Studies, which is Mega Sensei studying currently as English-based course. And in the Faculty of Economics, our master's course has English course, which is called a Public Administration course. And you can see a lot of international students from Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, Laos, and let's say Bangladesh, and sometimes students from Nepal also studying in this building. And in addition, our newest EMI course is a global science course. That is for undergraduate students. So you can also see a lot of younger international students from all over the world. So yes, the number of international students in Japan is increasing, generally speaking. And to understand the international, student in Japan easily. I prepared several figures, and first one is the number of international students in Japan, and the red one is inbound, the international student from abroad to Japan, and blue one is outbound international student mobility. Mainly Japanese student studying abroad is the blue one. So generally speaking, the red one is getting larger and larger. And during the COVID time, the number of international students becomes a little bit smaller, but just a little bit. On the other hand, blue line, Japanese students studying abroad changed dramatically during the COVID time. So in the case of Yamaguchi University, despite the COVID time, where a lot of international students enrolled in here, on the other hand, the number of Japanese students study abroad became almost zero. Not zero, but almost zero. So not only our university, but also other Japanese universities had a similar situation during the COVID time. And if we compare the similar figure, maybe you can understand Japan's international student trend. For example, if I compare this figure to the US one, it looks similar. In the US, the number of international students itself is larger than Japan, but during the COVID time, the number of international students to the US also became a little bit smaller. But the number of American students study abroad getting smaller during the COVID time. So this figure looks like Japan's, right? However, European countries are quite different. For example, this one is Germany one. So despite the COVID time, the number of inbound international students getting larger and larger in Germany. And blue line, German student study abroad didn't change a lot. So this case is Germany's one, but if you have a chance to take a look at IIE's statistics, maybe you can find similar figures about France cases, Spain cases, etc. So generally speaking, Japan did kind of isolation policy during the COVID time, but European country didn't care about student mobility, even though during the COVID time. Anyway, but compared with tourists, the number of international students in Japan is still high in number. And as I mentioned, there are quite a lot of English-based courses in Japan, especially in national universities in Japan nowadays. And this website is Study English in Japan, university degree course offered in English website. prepared by JESO. That is a student support organization in Japan. And I often research the international student mobility in Japan. And when I counted the number of international, English-based international course in Japan, and when I researched about 10 years ago, I found almost, let's say, 60 to 70 universities in Japan, which is offered in English. However, recently, English-based course in Japan is getting, larger and larger. For example, if we focus in economics course alone, I think many of you are majoring in economics or business management, so maybe you are interested at these courses. And I just focus economics in English alone. Even though I focus in economics, there are quite a lot of English courses in Japan. For example, the first one, Tohoku University, is one of the best university in northern Japan. And Utsunomiya University is another national university located near Tokyo. And it has English course too. And Saitama University is also located in Tokyo metropolitan area. And Chiba University is also located in Tokyo metropolitan area. And Yokohama National University is also located in Tokyo metropolitan area. And the Tsukuba University of Tsukuba is one of the best research university in Japan. And it's located near Tokyo. And next one is the best one, the University of Tokyo, the best university of Japan. And the bottom one, Tokyo Institute of Technology, is a science university, national science university in Japan. And that university has a special course, which is economics related for engineers. So that is a kind of special course. To be continued. And next one is Nagoya University, very good university in Nagoya. And Biaya University is located near Nagoya. And next one is Japan Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. And that is a science university. But again, some of the science university and engineering universities are also creating the English course, which is related to engineering economics and science economics or something like that. And Kyoto University is another good university located in Kyoto and the #1 Nobel Prize holders university in Japan. And Kobe University is a good commerce university located near Osaka. And Okayama University also has English course. To be continued. And Yamaguchi University has economics English course, which is called public administration course. And as I mentioned before, you can find a lot of international students from Indonesia, Malaysia, and other Southeast countries. And in addition, recently, in public administration course, you can also see the student from Africa for example. So our public administration course is very international course. And Kyushu University is a best university in Kyushu Island. And in addition to national universities, public universities, I mean prefecture universities, has English courses too, like University of Hyogo near Osaka, and the University of Kita-Kyushu is located in Kyushu Island too, and they have good English courses related to economics and business management. And in addition, there are quite a lot of private universities which have English courses, like Tokyo International University and International University of Japan, located near Tokyo, but headquarters is located in Niigata Prefecture. And in addition, major private universities like Kyoto, Keio University also has English courses recently. And International Christian University and Sophia universities are famous in international university in Japan. And Toyo University, Hosei University, Musashi University, and other private universities located in Tokyo also have a lot of English courses, include economic courses. Looks like never ending, but there are quite a lot of English-based economic courses. For example, Waseda University. Waseda University is one of the most famous private universities in Japan, and Waseda University is also the largest international student holder in Japan too. And other Tokyo's university, like Soka University, also has a lot of international students. And not only Tokyo's located private universities, but also other places, private universities also have a lot of international students, like Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto and Ryukoku University in Kyoto. And in addition, well, my ex-working place, Ritsumeikan Asia Pacific University, located in Kyushu Island, also has a lot of international students. And my ex-working place was once the largest international student holder. Anyway, and Kanazawa University is national university located in Kanazawa, and they also has new English course. So as you can see, there are quite a lot of English-based courses in Japan, and I just listed up economic courses. And if I add, let's say, commerce course, business management course, maybe you can find a lot of English-based courses in Japan. Okay, this is the end of the introduction. And I have other slides, but if you have any question, I'm happy to answer briefly.
Okay, so the first session is about introductions. Like a sensei said, if there's any questions about the introduction, maybe about the education in Japan, about the phenomena, the depopulation in Japan, and also phenomena about the increasing of the university students. Like sensei said, #1 international students is China, #2 is Indonesia. So when I come here, like I just feel like I'm in Indonesia. Okay, any questions? Bapak Ibu ada pertanyaan? Aduh, mohon maaf. Mungkin ada pertanyaan mengenai materi introduction. Oke.
Halo.
Silakan Pak Muhammad Muhsyanur.
Oh ya, terima kasih. Baik. Thanks very much for the opportunity these times. So this is very interesting about the material. So my question is about how is the concept of curriculum implementation in Japan? Yeah, curriculum model, concept curriculum. In Indonesia have difference in Japan and Indonesia. Indonesia always change according to government relegation. And how about in Japan? Concept of the curriculum. I think that my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. And yes, I'm also planning to talk about curriculum in Japan.
Yes, about the concept implementation of curriculum.
I'm planning to talk about the curriculums, especially related to jobs and education. And I will talk about it later in detail.
Oke, jadi nanti akan dijelasin Pak. Ini hanya introduction dulu.
Oke.
Siap, lanjut ya Pak. Oke, Hai Sensei. Oke, ada pertanyaan lain mengenai introduction dulu? Oke.
Okay, if you don't have any question, I'd like to move to the second part, main part of today's lecture. May I move to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Okay. Part 2 is my main part, today's main part. From now, I'd like to talk about social changes and education in Japan. So, well, generally speaking, society and education are closely related. So, Japan's education system is closely related to Japan's society. But historically, the education system has been changed because Japan society also changed. I mean, society changed and education system also changed. But there are two big turning points of education in Japan. One big turning point was Meiji era, because Japan opened. Before that, Japan closed the country, and after the Meiji Restoration, Japan opened the country. So that is the first turning point. And the second largest turning point was just after the World War II. Because due to the World War II and Japan defeated by the US, so Japan occupied Japan. US occupied Japan from 1945 to 1951. And during that time, Japan society changed a lot. And the Japanese government at that time initiated American-style education system, like 6 years elementary school, 3 years junior high, 3 years high school, and 4 years university. So Japan copied that system at that time. So formal education system in Japan fundamentally changed in 1947 in primary level. And as I mentioned before, 6 years primary education was initiated at that time. And new high school, I mean, especially new senior high school established in 1948. And following that, new universities established in 1949. So used to be, and before the World War II, university was, existed for elite. So in the case of national universities, there was only 7 national universities existed in mainland Japan, used to be. However, after 1949, the national universities in remote prefecture, included here, also established in the same year. So now you can see national universities in Japan in every prefecture. And this figure shows number of pupils, elementary schools pupils in Japan during 1940s to 1960s. So as you can see, until 1960s, the number of elementary pupils became larger and larger at that time. So at that time, Japan didn't suffer from depopulation, right? And please take a look at the next slide. This figure shows ratio of to enter to senior high school in Japan. So in addition to the increased number of students, the percentage of students who is getting into high school and getting into universities, getting larger to larger. So during 1950s, 60s, 70s, in this case, high school, the ratio to get into high school is getting larger and larger. And nowadays, almost all Japanese people get into high school nowadays. And as I mentioned, in 1960s, number of pupils and students were increasing. And that times where social environment and current social environment are quite different. So on the other hand, to catch up the developed countries, industrialization in Japan was required. So during that period, Japanese government heavily focused to educate engineers. So engineering and science education has priority in Japan, especially in national educational institutions during 1960s, for example. But even though now, Japanese government are paying a lot of budget for, faculty of engineering, not faculty of economics, unfortunately. And historically, this kind of situation continued since Meiji Resurrection, since Meiji period, and even though now, science and engineering-oriented education has been continued, even though nowadays. Okay. And this figure shows the number of engineering and science students in Japan, Japanese universities. As you can see the number of science and engineering students during 1950s and 60s are getting larger and larger. Okay, and Japanese government at that time wanted to, create a lot of factories, and Japanese government at that time need workers who is working at factory. Okay. And if you have a chance to study, if you have a chance to learn about history of Japan's economics, maybe you have a chance to learn something about OJT, on-the-job training in Japan. And during 60s and 70s, OJT was very popular informal training system in the companies, not in formal educational institution, right? And it used to be Japanese people thought create high quality mass products and sell them to customers, especially US customers, were enough. So Japanese people used to be, produced a lot of cars, electric devices, etc., and export to the US used to be. Now Chinese people do, but used to be Japanese people did. And when Japanese population was increased and average age was younger, private sector adopted customers with their on-the-job training, on-the-job training system. Compared with elderly people, younger people can adopt the newer thing easily. But on the other hand, nowadays, Japan already changed to the tertiary industry-based society nowadays. So again, it used to be during 1960s and 70s, Japan created a lot of, factory product. But now, since 90s, Japan society is, service-oriented society, right? So different kind of skills have been required now. And now Japan is suffering from aging and depopulation nowadays. So due to the aging and conservative society, now in Japan, believe it or not, average Japanese people's age is, as high as me, and much more, elderly people, quite a lot of elderly people are living in Japan now. So social system include education, changing very slowly nowadays in Japan. So when the population of Japanese people are younger, with social change was relatively fast. But nowadays, elderly people is the majority in Japan. So they are very conservative. So they don't want to change social system. And now Japan is a kind of so-called silver democracy society. So elderly people are, considering the policies related to elderly people. So younger people in Japan is minority nowadays. So when the national election usually elderly representatives win. in Japan nowadays. So even though private companies' demography is aging, so if you visit typical types of Japanese companies, maybe you can find a lot of elderly workers, and you can find only a few younger workers nowadays. So even worse, many of the old type Japanese companies managed by elderly people cannot continue effective OJT system anymore. When Japan was engineering or factory-based society, OJT system was good because senior worker just say, please follow me, please copy me. And the younger worker can copy easily. But Japan is not that kind of society anymore. So despite shortage of younger worker is serious problem in Japan, that one is very sad scenario. Some of the high-skilled younger people are escaping from the old-fashioned workplace. So again, you can see a lot of typical Japanese company which is occupied by elderly people. So in that case, that working environment is not so suitable younger people. So younger people nowadays aim to work in, let's say, information science companies, for example. That is much more attractive for younger worker, for example. And in addition, in international-based companies, like American-based companies, much more attractive for younger Japanese people compared with typical Japanese old company. But Japanese government also knows about Japan's weak points. So Japanese government is trying to change the society. So Japanese government also try to change the education system. I mean, formal education system nowadays. For example, one of the weak points for Japan society is the fewer number of entrepreneurs. Well, it used to be during 1960s, you can find a lot of good newer companies like Toyota, Honda. I mean, Toyota and Honda are big company now. But during the 1960s, Toyota and Honda, and let's say Panasonic's kind of venture capital at that time. But nowadays, compared with Mr. Toyota, Mr. Honda, and Mr. Matsushita, fewer number of entrepreneurs and or set up companies is a weak point of Japan's society nowadays. So Japanese government established H program that is enhancing development of global entrepreneur program by the mixed ministry education, and which is initiated in year 2014 for targeted universities. So there are several core universities to educate future entrepreneur. And in addition, Japanese government enlarge the number of universities, not only the core university, but also spoke universities, like here, establishing to, educate a lot of future entrepreneur. And in addition, to expand entrepreneur education to high school, H Prime program is also initiated by the Ministry of Education from this year. So Japanese government is trying to, educate future entrepreneurs. But anyway, this sounds a little bit strange, isn't it? Entrepreneur may, start up their company, even though they without education, right? Without formal education, right? So, this sounds a little bit strange, but Japanese government is trying to initiate a kind of special course for future entrepreneur. And this figure shows the entrepreneur index before the COVID. So in the case of the United States and Switzerland, there are a lot of entrepreneurs, but compared with these countries, compared with other, developed countries, Japan's score is very low. So that is the reason why Japanese government are trying to, create a special course for future entrepreneur. Okay, and Japan's education has a lot of problems, and the next problem is English skill. Low English communication skill has been a big issue in Japan. So, well, in my age, I learned English from junior high school, university. And in my case, I also learned English when I was in the postgraduate school student. But anyway, generally speaking, Japanese students are learning English from their junior high school days for quite a long time. But unfortunately, the communication skills, Japanese people's English communication skill is not so good. So to overcome this issue, Japanese government changed the learning year from secondary education, junior high school level, to elementary school level. So elective class English in public elementary schools in Japan started in 2011. But anyway, Japan has a lot of private schools. So in the case of private elementary schools, rich people's kids had enough chance to learn English, even though before 2011. But generally speaking, public elementary school is cheaper than private elementary school, and every student can learn English nowadays. And in addition, in the case of year 2011, that English class was elective class, but now English is must class for elementary pupils. Okay, a must class was started in year 2020. Okay. And this figure shows English skills by high school students in Japan. And well, still not so high, but getting better, as you can see. CEPAL A2 level, not so high level, but A2 level is getting higher. And if you add a B1 and above level, which is much more higher than A2 level, well, nowadays, half of the high school student can communicate in English. And English education is getting better recently, but information education still has some problem in Japan. Information society is getting advanced during the COVID time in Japan. But informatics education was, slowly developed in Japan compared with English education. Subject of informatics in public senior high school in Japan started in year 2003 as an elective subject. But math subject informatics 1, that means basics of informatics for public senior high school in Japan just started in year 2012. I mean, just after the COVID incident. And informatics will be required to be the unified university entrance examination from year 2025, not initiated yet. So high school and the university are getting better, but elementary and junior high school had a lot of problems related to informatics. As soon as the COVID-19 started in year 2020, major universities offered online classes. So used to be, I didn't do Zoom classes before the COVID, but just after the COVID, we just adapted to Zoom classes, Webex classes, Teams classes, etc. However, a majority of public primary and secondary schools could not open classes because digitalization on education was less developed in Japan. Majority of public school teachers just sent printed matters by post. So I have, elementary school kids, and as soon as the COVID, COVID incident happened, I used Zoom for university students, and I opened online classes. But my kids received, envelope, and when we opened the envelope, when I opened the envelope, there are quite a lot of printed matters, and elementary school teachers just say, please do it. And my kids just do it without, instruction. I helped, and my wife helped my kids' education. But it was not so good. So in the case of public schools, portable computers are provided for pupils, but after the COVID incident. So again, in year 2020, well, I think private schools, kids can use computer, but in the case of public schools, I mean public elementary school and junior high school, people, student in Yamaguchi prefecture could not use portable computers at that time. Okay, so information science for primary education was not developed in Japan at that time anyway. And in addition, there is another Japan's weak point, reskilling for adult students. And again, OJT system was very popular in Japan, used to be, but OJT system was designed for the existing working place. So again, as senior worker said, please follow me, and younger worker just copy the working system. But new developed field needs new knowledge. For example, information science needs newer types of education. However, OJT could not adapt effectively because all the company don't have, ICT division, information communication science division. So they cannot say, please just copy, right? So on the other hand, majority of Japanese workers did not study at school and university after their graduation. That is a very big problem in Japan. Elementary school people in Japan are studying very hard, and high school students are studying very hard in Japan. And the university students are studying so-so, still studying, but after graduate, except OJT, Japanese worker didn't study a lot. But on the other hand, recurrent education, especially for retired Japanese people, dramatically expand in Japan. So during their working days, they didn't study a lot, but I mean in university and other schools. But if you have a chance to come to Japan, you can see a lot of retired students. So after the COVID, reskilling is a hot issue in Japan. So it used to be Japanese working age people didn't study after they graduate. But during the COVID, many of the workers, especially worked at tourism and hospitality industry, hired, unfortunately. So in year 2021, next, the Ministry of Education spent 50.5 billion yen, quite a lot of money for reskilling, especially related to digital transformation. So a lot of fired workers who had chance to use this budget to restudy at vocational colleges and universities. So we're changing slowly, but gradually changing. Japan's formal education is changing gradually. Okay, this is the end of the second part. And if you have questions, I'm also happy to answer.
Okay, Sensei, thank you for the second session. We have one question, Sensei, in the webinar chat.
Yes.
come from Mr. Rafael. Mr.
Yes.
Rafael, are you there? Maybe you can read your own questions, Mr. Rafael, or just me?
Okay, hello.
Okay.
No?
Hello, yes. Thank you. My question is, what's the most powerful effort to drive Japan is the most developing country also in education, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It must be a little bit complicated to answer.
Because yeah, all of us agreed that Japan is the reference country for education, for technology, and so on. So I believe that there is a core effort to differentiate Japan from others, also from Indonesia. Thank you, sir. Arigato.
Thank you very much. I think if I talk about engineering and science education, well, Japan's education, I mean, formal education system is not so bad. So even though now it will be okay, but again, Japan's society is changing, so new technology in let's say information communication technologies, human resources still has shortage in number, and in addition, well, international business, human resources still has shortage. So some of the Japanese students, getting better. I mean, in the case of English communication, for example, but now the number of younger people itself is getting smaller and smaller. So if we have enough time, I'd like to talk about the next slide. And Japan also trying to welcome a lot of international students as a future worker in Japan. Anyway, thank you very much.
Okay. So, Pak Rafael, mungkin ada pertanyaan, ada ini tambahan lagi? Oke, jadi Sensei, maybe you have another material after this?
Do we have enough time to talk about another part of following part?
Okay. We have 15 minutes, Sensei. 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the next part briefly.
Oke, hai.
Oke, mungkin Ibu boleh bantu terjemahkan. Intinya gini, Bu. Kalau ada dosen saya pernah bilang, kalau di Cina itu seorang shinsei bisa sekolah lagi di Fakultas Kedokteran. Dan itu tidak bisa dilakukan di Indonesia karena ada sistem yang tidak memungkinkan seperti itu. Apakah di Jepang ada juga fakta institusi pendidikan yang bisa menerima elder student atau ya semacam itu tadi, yang di Cina seorang shinsei masih boleh masuk kuliah di Fakultas Kedokteran gitu. Nah, monggo silakan penerjemahannya.
Okay, Sensei is still questions from Mr. Rafael, Sensei.
Okay.
Mr. Rafael have information from China that in China, Shinsei is the traditional doctor,
Yes.
Chinese
Yes.
doctor. The
Yes.
elderly, most of the Shinsei is elderly people, they can take the doctoral or medicine education, formal education. So is it the same situation in Japan, Sensei?
Well, medical education is, a kind of high-end education in Japan. And yes, if you are clever, clever enough, you can get into the national medical university, for example. And in the case of national university, the tuition of medical students and economic students are same. So many clever students want to get into medical school. But in reality, well, national medical schools are very competitive. So many of the students who are rich are getting into private medical schools. But it costs a lot. So unfortunately, medical doctors' kids can get into private medical university because they are rich enough. Anyway, the income of medical doctor in Japan is very high. Anyway.
Hai Sensei. Ya itu Pak Rafael. Jadi jawabannya mungkin kalau di private university, as long as dia punya uang, bisa studi lanjut.
Termasuk di Jepang, Bu.
Iya, di Jepang. Seperti itu.
Topik apapun.
Is also for every topic, Sensei, not only medicine. Maybe Mr. Rafael want to continue study in Japan.
If you be a medical doctor in Japan, you can be rich.
Oke, by the way, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Ya, thank you. Makasih, Bu.
Sama Pak.
Bye.
Right. Sensei, there's another question, Sensei, about maybe one more question, Sensei, from Pak Bima. Pak Bima, silakan Pak.
はい、はじめまして。
はじめまして。
聞こえませんか？ちゃんと音出る。
大丈夫です。
ちょっと緊張するね。日本の話すとき。ありがとう、チャンス知ること。エデュケーションシステム日本のはちょっと気になります。ある YouTube ビデオ見ました。ちゃんと気をすごく上手、元気。2歳かも、2歳と3歳かも。もう上手、元気話すときも、一緒にご飯、料理、同じマム、お母さんの一緒、料理ときも上手、元気みたい。あの時も、すごく気になります。どんなエデュケーションシステム、日本のありますかね、そんなこと。2歳ガキもすごく上手みたい。ペレンシングありますか、そのプログラム。気になります。
Thank you very much. Question is perfectly in Japanese. And about kids education. And in addition to curriculum education, in Japan, especially in elementary and pre-elementary level, where kids also let's say how to cook, how to clean, and also how to survive during the heavy rain and flood. So like you mentioned, where Japanese kids learn a lot of things, and parents also teach that kind of skills, but formal education institution also teach about how to live.
ああ、こんなお母さんのみたいね。本当好きです。そんなwoman、そんな女の子。女、すごい、she is so patient to teach her child.
Yeah.
That's why they are very so well educated. That's why I'm so curious about the program that is used in Japan. Is this only for survive? Only to make them survive?
Just not for survive, but well, these skills are very important to live in Japan. So the living skill is also educated by parents and also educated in the educational, formal educational institutions that include elementary school.
最後の質問は、文化、インドネシアの文化と compare to with 日本の文化、ちゃんと違います。違う。そうですね。でも、ガキたちは、子供たちは、日本はちゃんと上手みたい、元気みたい、自分のことできること。でも、インドネシア人の子供たちは、すごく、really, too much to parents, They are not become do it by themselves. In Indonesian children like that, but in Japan they doing everything by themselves. どんなプログラム、どんなエデュケーションシステム、どんな日本のメソッド最後の質問です。
Thank you very much. Well, the question is about living skill education in Japan, and from elementary school, Japanese kids learn how to cook, how to clean up, and how to tidy up, something like that. So of course parents teach, but these kind of skills are offered from public, formal education in Japan too. Whereas a kind of special subject is also available.
そうか。ありがとうございます。
Oke, Pak Bima sudah refreshing ngomong bahasa Jepang langsung dengan beliaunya. Oke, Sensei, will you go to another topic first because we have still a lot of questions actually, Sensei.
Okay. Let me finish my points, right? And the final part must be, attractive for Indonesian student, I guess. the final part 3, is study and work for international students in Japan. Okay. And well, study in Japan, Japanese skill is an advantage, but not necessary to enter Japanese university nowadays. You used to be, you have to learn English, Japanese, but nowadays English is also okay. So English skill is required if you do not have enough Japanese skill. However, compared with English medium instruction, there are much more Japanese-based classes in Japan. For example, in the case of Yamaguchi University, we have, let's say, 9 undergraduate faculty, but one is in English, but other 8 is, offering in Japanese. So if you have Japanese skill, it must be a very good advantage to study in Japan. But English is minimum required nowadays. And good case is, even though you don't understand Japanese maturely, please come to Japan with English exam. After that, basic Japanese classes for international students are also available. So, Mega Sensei learning basic Japanese now. Okay. So you can also learn Japanese from survival. Okay. And this slide is similar as before, and this shows the number of international students in Japan. And compared with the previous one, this one is a little bit newer one. So after the COVID, the number of students becomes, international students becomes smaller, but nowadays it's recovering. And like previous slide, that is another internet website which shows English medium institution universities in Japan. So you can find a lot of this kind of website nowadays. And Waseda University is the largest international student holder in Japan, and during the COVID, the number of international students became a little bit smaller, but it's still large in number. And quite a lot of students in Waseda University is from China, but you can also see a lot of international students from Indonesia. And in the case of Yamaguchi University, there are not a small number in international students. And last year, the number 1 largest student is from China. And in that year, the second largest was from Korea, but in some year, in Indonesia, students becomes number 2, so it depends. So in Yamaguchi University, you can see a lot of Indonesian students, especially in this campus. And this is a typical schedule for international students, but just before the COVID. So late March, if you want to start from April, late March is arrival month, and pick up bus service from Fukuoka International Airport, the nearest international airport from Yamaguchi is available. And in March, orientation on local life in Yamaguchi was provided, and early April, entrance ceremony and orientation for the newly enrolled were held. And late April or early May, educational bus tour. That is fun. that is fun. Is available. And Yamaguchi University and sometimes Yamaguchi City and Yamaguchi Prefecture organize, a kind of educational tour around here. And in addition to April entrance, a similar service for October enrolled students were also available 6 months later. Okay. And that is the Yamaguchi city's event. Yamaguchi City had a kind of special program for international students, and they invite a lot of international students to, attend, the Yamaguchi's event with, tour guide bus. And Yamaguchi City is also happy if they, spread the information with using their SNS. So that is a kind of win-win situation, right? And one of the event is, you are familiar with this lady. And Mera Sensei also attended the local Yamaguchi's festival. So like this, if you have a chance to come to Yamaguchi, Yamaguchi University and or Yamaguchi City often invite you to attend that kind of festivals, for example. And if you want to keep staying in Japan, you have a chance to work in Japan too. And if you learn Japanese language during your stay in Japan, it must be a strong advantage to work in Japan in general. And as of now, multilingual staff who can understand Japanese is most welcome. So if you can understand, Japanese, English, and Bahasa Indonesia, it will be perfect, right? And if you have enough informatics skills, it is also strong advantage when you would like to work in Japan. So sometimes, even though you don't understand Japanese language, but if you have enough skill of informatics and if you have some English skills, you can also work in Japan, for example. Of course, learning experience in Japan is also beneficial. For example, if you have a chance to learn in Japan as an exchange student, for example, it will be a very strong advantage, right? And this figure shows the number of international workers in Japan. So we don't have enough time, so I don't talk about the detail, but as you can see, the number of international workers in Japan is getting larger and larger, right? Even though the COVID time. And you can also find job finding website like this in English. And in addition, some of the local municipalities are also calling for international workers. That website is offered by Niseko Town in Hokkaido. Niseko is a kind of international tourist destination. So there are quite a lot of international tourists. And Niseko Town is a lot of workers who can speak English, Chinese, Korean, and more recently, Indonesian speaking workers are also welcome, I think. And the number of foreign residents living in Japan in general is also increasing. Despite the COVID time, the number of international residents in Japan are getting larger. So maybe final part is attractive for Indonesian student, I guess.
Okay, so maybe this is the end of for the material come from Asamizu Sensei. So next session is about question and answers. I think we have a lot of questions, Sensei. In line, we have Mr. Easy. Mr. AZ first. Would you like to speak by yourself, Mr. AZ? Okay. Next, we have a question and answer. It's come from Mrs. Rimalande. The question is about, can you explain how Japanese culture influenced the education system? Thank you, Sensei.
It's a tough question. Yes, of course, culture and education are closely related. And maybe like, previous questions and comments. Well, how to clean up is something strange for students from abroad, I think. But in Japan, did you buy themselves? It is very important. So, in addition to subject, I mean subject studies in formal education, how to deep education is also very important in Japan. So elementary school pupil can also clean up the room. So if you have a chance to see the, soccer games, international soccer games, maybe you can have experience to see the, Japanese supporters always clean up their seat after the football game. And Japanese football players also clean up their benches or rooms. So I think that is related to Japan's culture and Japan's education, I think.
Okay, thank you, Sensei.
Thank you.
Hai, thank you. Apakah perlu ditranslate ke bahasa Indonesia mengenai fenomena soccer player dari Japan yang bersih-bersih sampah ketika ada permainan soccer, sepak bola? Itu merupakan salah satu contoh hubungan antara culture-nya Jepang dengan edukasi di Jepang, bahwa mereka memang disiplin mengenai kebersihan. Mungkin itu jawabannya. Ini ada 5. There are 5 people, Sensei, that raise hand. Maybe come to the first one is Mr. Momo. Oh, sorry, Mr. Momo or Mr. Aji first? Mr. Aji first, sorry. Mr. Aji Tono, could you please turn on the mic?
Baik, selamat malam. Good evening, Mr. Munehiko, Asamizu. I just want to ask one question. From your experience as a teacher, lecturer, and your watchful, thoughtful observation in this fast-paced, growing world, what is the most things we, as a student, a learner, as a part of community in this world, should know to be well prepared in facing this world? Thank you.
That is a tough question too. And well, generally speaking, our society is changing. Well, Japan society is changing, and of course, Indonesia society is changing. And as an educator, we need to, educate the, future human resource for our society. So, well, it's changed historically, but as of now, as I mentioned, Japan has several, programs, and Japan society has several programs. So we need to, educate entrepreneur, especially social entrepreneur, and to communicate with non-Japanese speaking people. Japanese people also have to learn English, so Japanese government changed English educational system, and quite a lot. So anyway, we have to improve one by one, step by step. Thank you very much.
Oke, gimana Pak Haji? Oke, hi Asamizu Sensei. Next to the next questions from the Mr. Desrianto, please.
Selamat malam. I want to ask to Mr. Munehiko. You said that learning Japanese during working it is advantage and it is possible. But how about magister or postgraduate? Is it possible to continue our postgraduate while working in Japan, especially for engineering? Because my friend wants to stay in Japan for studying while working. However, as I know that Japan is one of the country which has long working time. Thank you.
That's the problem. That's the problem. Well, long working hour is a kind of serious problem in Japan. So we have to improve it, but still challenging. And yeah, especially in information technology, human resources, the long working hour of Japan is a very big barrier. For example, yes, in Japan, in the case of IT, information technology engineer, you can work in Japan even though you cannot understand Japanese language. But if the working condition other than Japan is good, maybe they will escape from Japan and work in the US, UK, Australia, etc. So nowadays, gradually, some of the good Japanese companies realize about that. So some of the Japanese companies are, friendly for younger workers, and working hour is not so long, and some good companies are also friendly for female workers, and they can offer kind of children support rest or children support break, and they can also make the working hour shorter too. But unfortunately, not every Japanese companies. So there some workers friendly company will be survive in the future. But I'm afraid old-fashioned, elderly people oriented companies hard to survive in the future, I guess. Oh, anyway, workers friendly companies are also friendly for international workers too.
Oke. Tergantung perusahaannya, Pak. Kalau yang friendly perusahaan memungkinkan untuk sekolah lagi, gitu. Friendly perusahaannya mungkin Asamizu kurang paham tuh ininya, gitu, Pak. Oke, lanjut ya. Kita akan ada 2 pertanyaan lagi, karena di Jepang sudah pukul 10:15. Silakan Ibu Vina.
Arigatou gozaimasu. Sensei, watashi no shizumon wa, watashi wa awareness de Nihongo o oshiemasu. Awareness wa kikan wa hikoshiki kyoiku de, non-formal education, hikoshiki no kyoiku de, saisho no satsugyo shoushou ni soto desu. Equivalent with diploma this kikan. それから1年間勉強して、それからOJT on the job training をして、それから会社で働いてできます。日本には非公式教育はありますか？あればシステムはまたはメソドロジーはどうですか？非公式教育がありますか？それからメソドロジーはどうですか？
ありがとうございます。The question is about informal education in Japan, like OJT, and yes, it used to be OJT type informal education was very popular and kindly mainstream after worker worked at a particular company. But it's now very complicated. In the case of social welfare working place, I think OJT is still available. But in the case of engineering, the development of technologies, advancing very, very rapidly. So sometimes OJT, all typed engineering company, so working with. And in the case of information technology and communication, I'm not sure about OJT because compared with typical, other jobs, usually that kind of jobs are created by young entrepreneur. So I'm not sure about working environment created by newer Japanese people. Anyway, it will be hard to answer.
In Indonesia, non-formal education, a lot of there are a lot of so much, yeah. But in Japan, also there are non-formal education too. Yeah, also ですね。はい、メトドロジーはOJT もthis must be on the job training before hatarakimasu. そうですね。はい、どうもありがとうございました、先生。とてもいいです。
Okay. Right. So on job training in Japan and Indonesia, we have like similar name of on job training. Okay, it's a non-formal education. Okay, I think that's the end of the question and answer session. So happy to sharing in the open lecture, guys. Special thank you for the speaker Asamizu Munehiko sensei. Maybe I have one question, sensei. If they have the students want to ask about your email, is it possible to share the email or not, sensei?
Don't worry, it's okay.
Oke. So Bapak Ibu, apabila membutuhkan alamat email dari Asamizu Sensei, saya akan share ke admin dari S2. Nanti Bapak Ibu bisa langsung bertanya kepada admin S2. Okay, before we close this open lecture, please we have to take a picture together. So please turn on your video so we can see your face on the screen.
Mbak.
Smile, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Hi, thank you very much, Asamizu Sensei. Actually, this is the joint class for the master class for Institut Teknologi and Business Asia. We have 3 major for the Magister Management, which is education major, also business major, administration major, and tourism majority, sensei. So maybe next topic we can talk about the tourism, sensei.
I'm happy to. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. One more time, let's finish this class. Terima kasih. Selamat malam. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.